Welcome back to the Rusty Pipes Week 6 predictions. I'm your host, Michael Moore, and we'll get right into it. First matchup of the week, we have Live Laugh Facebook, owned by Carson, taking on Suck My Wake, owned by Chris Ritchie. Both teams are kind of in same but different positions, as both are in the playoff hunt, but Carson is a much better team, more all-around team, and Ritchie, losing Jay Jettis last week to injury and trading away to Schultz, he kind of revamped some of his offense, getting some pieces like Rachaad White and D-Hop in there, but none of them can compare to Jay Jettis' production. Carson, he added King Henry, and he's an immediate producer so far in his London game, putting up 19 points as of right now, and he's got Justin Tucker at 16. And to match that, he's also got Devontae Adams going against a struggling New England defense, and Stephon Diggs going against a lackluster New York Giants defense. So both his receivers are projected probably huge games. Tua going against Carolina, that will be another good one for his QB. Ritchie, kind of a different story. He's got Rachaad White going against a good Detroit defense. Kenneth Walker, Cincinnati, they're starting to, I know it was their offense that was struggling, but their defense still is really good against the run, so we'll see how it goes there. Adam Thielen, he's, for his age, producing very well this year. We'll see if he can keep up that production, but all in all, I don't think Ritchie has enough to compete with Carson's team. And Carson will win this one with a score of 142 to 108. Next up, we have Josh against Babyback Gibbs, owned by Smiley. Josh, like I said in the power rankings, he's got a really stacked wide receiver group with A.J. Brown, Tyreek Hill, and Cooper Kupp. All of them are expected to have big games this week. A.J. Brown, he had the tougher matchup against New York Jets, but with the news that Sauce Gardner and DJ Reed, both New York Jets starting cornerbacks, will be out, that immediately boosted his projection, at least for me, and he's going to have probably a huge game now that the Jets secondary is banged up. The only kind of scarier one I see right here is just either Evan Ingram against the Colts. They have a little underrated defense. They're a little tough against tight ends. And Joe Mixon against Seattle. Seattle's still a good team, and Mixon's just been struggling all this whole year. But over to Smiley, he added Josh Jacobs. That's a big boost to his running back crew. And he's got Keenan Allen in there, already been like a top 5 producer at wide receiver. His only scary one is probably Darren Waller against Buffalo at the tight end. That's a very risky, probably bust projection out of there, especially with how bad the Giants have been. But CMC, he's been great all year. He's going against a tough Cleveland defense, but it's hard to keep anyone on that San Francisco offense down. And with CMC being as good as he is, I still predict him to have a great game. All in all, I predict that Smiley comes out on top in a barn burner of 145 to 142. Honestly, I can't remember if barn burner is a blow or high scoring game or just a metaphor for a low-scoring, shitty one. But you take it how it is. Next up, we have our number 1 team in the league in El Cabo sitting at 5-0, going against Drone Tree Trimmer and Jay. Jay, right at this moment, has a good opening to take the 8th seed in our league, especially with the other 4 teams around him that are sitting at 1-4, 0-5, have all sold off already. They aren't competing anymore. Jay has yet to do that, and he had a good start to the week on Thursday Night Football with Pacheco and Kelsey both going for 15 and 21 respectively. He does have some little shakier players in his team, like Josh Reynolds from Detroit, especially if Amon-Ra's back this week. That'll be a little tougher for him to produce. Rashid Shaheed, I'm still struggling with that name, but he's the boom-bust option. He's kind of like the Deshaun Jackson, where it's just if you can get that 1 or 2 deep passes where you can get like 3 catches for 120 yards and a touchdown, boom, he's got a huge week. But if he doesn't, it's like a 1 for 12. But Justin Fields, he's starting to get that groove back in him that he had last year. 2 big weeks these past 2 weeks, and now he's going against a Minnesota defense that is not that great. But all in all, Jay does have a tough matchup against this week against Cobb, who's just sitting with a stacked lineup in Jalen Hurts, Michael Pittman, Jamar Chase, who's with Joe Burrow finally getting back to his form, hitting Chase last week for 53 points, something like that, 15 catches, 190 yards, 3 touchdowns. Eckler's back in the lineup this week, and now while he is going against a Dallas defense that is good, They did just get embarrassed by San Fran last week. We'll see if they really come back or lay down. It is Dallas, so you never know. All in all, though, I think Cobb gets an easy win this week with a score of 138 to 125. Next up in the matchup, we have Sierra's Cuck, owned by Russ, going against Parlay Melee, owned by Reach. Russ recently sold off Tony Pollard to Reach, so this will almost be like so it will be a tough one for Russ to watch, as Pollard will probably go off against that Chargers defense, especially with Brandon Staley not knowing how to call defensive plays. But then again, Reach also has Bijan Robinson that has just been great all year. He's got Josh Allen, who's high-scoring quarterback, Swift. He is behind that amazing Eagles offensive line, and while they are going against a good Jets defense, I still project that the Eagles just dominate on the ground because the Jets have to worry about putting more guys in coverage in the air with Sauce Gardner being out. Russ still has some good players on his team, like Sun God. He's got Jalen Waddle and Alvin Kamara there. So he will put up a good fight, but really this lineup is no match for Reach. I project Reach to win 148 to 118. Right now, this week is just all about blowouts at this point. We have the top dogs going against the lower ones. We don't really have too many top matchups besides that Josh and Smiley matchup. That one will be probably one of the better ones, but it's nothing compared to our matchup of the week, which is Juicy Bear, owned by UD, at 0-5, going against Shazimler's List, owned by our very own commissioner, Mike Moore, also 0-5. The battle for the number one seed at the moment, or number one pick. It will be probably for the number one seed, as these guys have great draft pick stockpiles already for next year, and whoever loses this game will get that number one pick to help boost their team for next year. Probably will be whatever great rookie, or maybe Jay Jettis goes back in the draft. If Schultz still want to keep him, I doubt it, but there's always great players to go back. But enough rambling, back to the predictions. Mike still has some players on there. He's got Cortland Sutton that put up 14.5 on Thursday Night Football thanks to that amazing catch he had. Denver offense still sucks, but he's still got Lamar Jackson. He'll probably be sold off soon unless he decides to keep him if no one comes to knocking. He's got Jaleel McLaughlin, who put up 6, so not great, but it's for how messy that running back room at Denver is. It's still respectable. But all in all, Mike doesn't have too many players to really talk about. He's got Jameson Williams from Detroit in his lineup this week at the flex. That will probably be this matchup's X factor. I know I haven't gone with in depth with too many of the X factors in the other one, but next week they will be back. But Jameson Williams is Mike's X factor for this week. We'll see if he can catch some bombs. For Juicy Bear, he's got T. Higgins and Chris Godwin. We'll see if either of them can, with their competitive wide receivers like Mike Evans and Jamar Chase line up across or to the side of them, stealing those targets. We'll see if they can perform this week. He's also got the tight end 1 in fantasy so far in Sam Laporta. That will probably be UD's keeper, knowing how much of a Detroit Lions fan he is. But all in all, I project that UD, he does have the better team even after selling off Jalen Hurts. And I project UD to win this week 105 to 91, giving Mike the clear hand to the number one pick. Final matchup of the week, we have Not So Dangerous against Schultz. Just like most of the other teams near the bottom, Michael has sold off. He gave up Josh Jacobs and JT. JT is currently in Schultz's lineup this week, so it'll be almost like a homecoming, as Michael had owned Jonathan Taylor for the past 3 years after taking him in the first round back in 2021, somewhere around there, 2020, can't remember. I think it's 2020, so yeah, 3-4 years. But Michael this week, he still has Puka Nacua. He's still got Garrett Wilson. Those are some dogs at the wide receiver position. Joe Burrow's now back, and he's got Amari Cooper in that flex. The X factor for Michael this week will be Ramondre Stevenson, still looking to find that production that he had last year. And it's surprising that he hasn't, especially with the Patriots having a better offensive coordinator. But, with Mac Jones struggling and they just had a tough schedule leading up to this point, we'll see if Stevenson can find that. Schultz, on the other hand, he's got a great lineup consisting of Chris Olave and DJ Moore, wide receiver. And then he's got Travis Etienne and Breece Hall at running back. All 4 of those guys can just go off for 20 plus any week that you can think of. And all of them, besides Breece Hall, really have great matchups this week. Breece, tougher matchup against Philly, but I doubt he'll reach that same production they had last week against that measly Denver defense, but he can still put up good points. All in all, though, Schultz, he'll have an easy win this week with a final score prediction of 129 to 114. That'll be it for this week's Rusty Pipes predictions. I'll be back later in next week with the power rankings.